This is Partner Relationship Management, the ultimate channel sales podcast. Welcome to another episode of the Ultimate Channel Sales Podcast. I'm your host, Paul Bird. Partner marketing provides a unique opportunity for businesses to leverage the strength and resources of their partners. This is to enhance their marketing efforts, reach new audiences, and drive revenue growth. In today's episode, we're going to look at the key benefits and strategies to partner marketing and provide some practical tips and advice on how to optimize your partner marketing efforts. Our guest today has been one of the most visible members within partnership communities today. If you're active within partnership posts on LinkedIn, you may have noticed him regularly commenting and leaving some helpful tips. After working in partnership roles and business development, strategic partnerships, both at a director and a senior manager level, he quickly embraced this specialization and set out on his own to help partnership teams overcome their marketing challenges. This is everything from fractional leadership to fractional marketing support, all the way to program design, and he can really do it all. So he's here with us today to talk about partner marketing tips, advice, and strategies to stand out. Please welcome the founder of PartnerFuel, Ben Wright. Welcome to the show, Ben. It's great to have you here.
Well, thanks so much for having me. That was a very nice introduction. A lot of podcasts don't do that. I wasn't expecting it. So, great introduction. You made me blush.
Well, maybe you can tell us a little bit about some of the highlights in your career so far as it applies to partner marketing.
Of course, and I think kind of going back, I think my career in partnerships probably started about eight years ago now. And this seems to be the way with every partnership person you talk to. Wasn't kind of brought up in the world of partnerships. You kind of just find it or get pushed into the role. And so I actually started off in customer success and led customer success, and then was asked to build out a partner program, built and scaled that from $500 a month all the way to, I think when I left, we've been doing about $200,000 a month in MRR. So really successful program there. Jumped over to Help Scout, where I kind of started building out their partner program. And so I think for me, not just specifically partner marketing based, but really the whole partnership world I've really kind of got to know and embrace. But one area that's kind of really drawn me into, and one that I don't think gets enough face time, and I think we can agree, Paul, right? Like partnerships is somewhat misunderstood as a whole.
Absolutely.
But partner marketing as a discipline internally to that is even less understood, in my opinion. And so was really drawn to that. A lot of things that I've tried over my career have been successful, and so kind of try to make it my own, so to speak, as a subject matter.
So let's really start with the basics. How do you define partner marketing in general, and what does it really help to achieve within your partnerships?
I'll probably just take a different tack to answering the question in terms of I look at partnerships as you should look at any business, right? You're trying to generate demand ultimately. And so partner marketing is the practice, in my opinion, of to, through, and with partners. And how do you generate demand for your business, i.e. additional leads? How do you raise awareness with your partner and their sales teams? That's another huge part of partner marketing. And so how do you keep yourself top of mind with your partners and their sales teams? And then additionally, how do you use partnership information, account data, to then make your outbound, all your other kind of direct marketing efforts just more effective? So I think that's a roundabout way of saying it's not just the through partner marketing, which is what a lot of people define it as, which is like, hey, let's do a webinar together to drive demand. But it's also all the stuff I've just mentioned, the to partner marketing and then the with as well.
So what type, with all these different stakeholders that you'd be working with, what types of partnerships, or are there different partnerships that need to engage more in partner marketing efforts than others? How do you approach that?
It's a great question. I think historically, kind of the two major partner channels that I've kind of run with have been channel partners in the form of MSPs, and then technology partners. And so I think with both of those different partner types, partner marketing differs slightly. With MSPs, it's a lot of like marketing to partners, in my opinion, because when you operate with MSPs, they have, like we work with Insight, right? One of the largest VARs in the country, and they've got a line card of thousands of different products that they're trying to sell, right? And so for me, that motion is like, well, how do they know about my software? How do I make sure that we're top of mind? And so when they're in calls, They're like, oh yeah, this Ben guy keeps marketing to me or messaging me about this product and this use case. And so I think for the MSP type use case, it was definitely the two. Technology partners are really interesting one because I think we're starting to see more and more popularity in going to market with technology partners.
Mhm.
And kind of the advent of tools like your crossbeams and your reveals now gives you all this data that you can go to market with your technology partners. And I think in that motion, it's very much how do we take this data, how do we view our account overlaps, and how do we develop that joint better together story, which we can go to market with. And so that's more kind of the through partner marketing, I think, which applies more there.
So, what do you think some of the most important aspects are to building out a successful, marketing program around your overall partner program when you have so many different types of stakeholders? Are there some foundational pieces that need to be in place first?
I think the foundational pieces actually go back to, and there's nuance with all of this, right? But like, I wouldn't say there's a one size fits all approach to partner marketing because it depends a lot on the stage of your program, right? How much resource you have available. Because for me, I see partner marketing programs fall into kind of one or two buckets. The first being brand new partner program, very light on resources. Maybe you've got one person in seat, and in that motion, you're actually either doing everything yourself. And to be honest, like partnership people, we're business development people, right? We're salespeople really at heart. We don't necessarily have that marketing muscle. And so what happens is you borrow from your direct marketing team. Their kind of whole messaging is totally off. And so I think in that kind of respect, really educating your direct marketing team on, hey, this is what partnerships are. This is the kind of different collateral that I need. It's almost being a bit political, right? In that motion from a foundational perspective to ensure that they know the types of collateral, the types of messaging that you need that fits your kind of unique position. And then there's the second piece, which is okay, now I've got a robust partner program. I've got the resources to actually bring in a partner marketer. Well, now you've probably got a ton of partners and one partner marketer. And so now you've got so much work to do, almost too much work.
Mhm.
And so the foundational pieces there become being very strategic in who are our best partners, who represent the biggest potential from a revenue perspective, and then really focusing down your efforts on how you market with them. So I like to put those into two buckets, and then based on each bucket, there's probably some foundational kind of groundwork that you need to do to get your partner marketing program kind of set up for success.
For those companies that do have both a direct sales force as well as their route to through market to market through channel or partnerships, do you think that the marketing material is any different? The strategy may be, but do you think the content is alters from a direct program?
I do, and I think it's just the nature of partnerships, right? Like, and again, different types of partners, different messaging. But if you think about the direct sales team, they have an ICP and they have a message that impacts that ICP, right? They have like we market to a CMO and our product makes, I don't know what you could say, like more leads. Let's just say broadly more leads for a CMO. So very kind of singular messaging value proposition. When you're marketing like with partners, it all becomes your joint value proposition, right? Which
Mhm.
is me plus this partner equals this enhanced experience for our wider customer base. And so even though like it's still an ICP we're trying to hit, which hopefully you and your partner have an overlap with, the messaging and the value proposition behind that differs dramatically, in my opinion.
Mhm.
And getting direct marketing teams to really understand that is difficult because they've been taught like, hey, this is the one message, this is the one ICP, this is what our product does, and it kind of you kind of have to shift your mindset a little bit when marketing with partners.
So, what do you think some of the most common mistakes that vendors make when it comes to partner marketing, and how can they avoid making those mistakes?
I think there's a couple of things. The first goes back to my point around like placing bets, right? And what I mean by that is I feel like we want to market with all of our partners. It's a natural reaction, right? Like ultimately, you want to give every partner a white glove experience. You want to go to market,
Mhm.
you want to generate leads, but there's always going to be a resource issue. I've never met one person that says, "Hey, we've got too much marketing resource," right? And so
Mhm.
I
True.
think stepping back, looking at your list of partners, figuring out who are the ones that are our biggest bets, the one that we want to double down on. I don't see enough partner marketing programs do that. I see a lot of partner marketers trying to do too much with too little. And ultimately,
Mhm.
then you're just spreading your efforts so thinly across the whole of your partner base, you're not going to see success with anybody. Instead, I always recommend like pick your bets, and also pick the activities that work as well, right, Paul? Like it's not just a pick a partner, but it's pick a marketing activity, right? Like everybody
Mhm.
uses the same playbook of we need to do a webinar, we need to do shared blog posts, we need to do social posts. Again, with marketing, you're tracking what works and then doubling down on the things that work. Don't just
Mhm.
have this playbook of we need to do X, Y, and Z because everybody else is doing it. Because guess what? It might not work for your audience. You and your partner might not have the best capabilities doing webinars, and so they fall flat. And so, picking activities and then picking partners, I think, are the kind of key things that I see people getting wrong with trying to do too much with too little, ultimately.
So you had mentioned something like doing a shared blog post or working with a partner to have different activities. Do you think there needs to be kind of a partner marketing agreement in place when you are going to work with a partner like this?
It depends on the size of the relationship. I think ultimately, as part of a partnership, I always recommend on a kickoff call really setting the table in terms of how much you're going to put into the relationship and what your expectation is of the partner, like a gentleman's agreement, more so,
Mhm.
in my opinion and in my experience. And with that, you're kind of setting out, hey, we're going to work on X, Y, and Z. And really, it's up to the partner to either come in and do it with you or just we don't do marketing, right? And again, it goes back to my piece of choosing the right partner. On the face of it, might be a good partner, but they don't put any effort into any of your co-marketing activities. And so for me, that would move them down the list, and maybe we prioritize somebody else who wants to go to market with us, who is willing to do like the work. Because I think ultimately with partner co-marketing, it does take both sides mucking in, both sides committing resources, and without that, it's going to be pretty ineffective from kind of a go-to-market piece, I think.
So what role does, you talk about the shared blog post, you talk about kind of looking at doubling down on what's working. Is there any kind of focus on, specifically content marketing ongoing with partners as part of that kind of marketing effort? And, how can vendors really create content that resonates not only with their partners, but the prospective leads they want to generate too?
So my previous company, Help Scout, phenomenal at content, right? All of our leads came through SEO. So our blog was thousands and thousands of hits every month. And so for me, the content marketing with partners was going to drive a lot more leads for my partner rather than falling back on like a webinar strategy, right? And so I'll go back to what we were saying around how does content marketing fit in? If it works for your business and that's where you think you're going to have the most impact for your partner, do content marketing, right? If you've got
Hmm.
this wonderful webinar set up where you get thousands of attendees, go with webinars, right? Like don't try and reinvent the wheel just because now we're doing partnerships. Focus on the thing that works and then bring your partner into that activity.
Hmm.
And so that's what I would say first of all. In terms of like the messaging, again, it's different, right? Like if I was going to do a shared blog post with the partner, you'd still abide by content marketing best practices, which is let's provide value to our prospective customers. So instead of it being like, let me tell you all about Magentrix and X, right? And talking about features, nobody's going to click on that blog, right? Nobody's going to
No.
click on it. Instead, how about we do something around how to create an efficient partner program, right? You and your partner create like a guide or an ebook and you weave in your products into that, right? Like that's the way that content marketing works in my mind from an effectiveness perspective. And again, you don't change that because you're doing it with partners. It just helps because now you have a secondary resource to submit thought leadership, ideas, and normally like a guide which would have taken your direct marketing team a couple of weeks to produce should half in time because you've got two people working on it, two sets of resources,
Sure.
right? And so I think my comment would be don't reinvent the wheel, but like it still needs to be valuable to your end customers, even though you're doing it with a partner.
On the webinars. I did a live one last week with Aaron Howerton and Rob from Superglue, and it was great. Yeah, we had great attendance. This was debate the need for a partner portal.
The thing you've done there, though, which is different, right, is like you've leveraged influencers, which
Yep.
is a unique spin on it, mate. Like what you've done there is exactly what I was talking about. Like use ABM, use LinkedIn. If you can pull in influencers, you amplify the audience, right? If you think about like getting a Jay McBain on who's got 50,000 followers, well, guess what?
Yep.
You're being marketed to 50,000 followers of your ICP, right? And so that's why the influencer play that you did, it doesn't surprise me. I'm not surprised that it did well. And that's a great way of doing it, right? Like picking a topic that people are interested in, pulling in influencers, and then weaving in Magentrix. That's the perfect way to do it. It's great.
And do you believe that, are you on the kind of personalization when it comes to marketing? And, how do you approach kind of tailored, personalized messaging when you're working with a partner?
100% personalization, 100%. I mean, your inbox must be saturated as mine is with cold emails every day. Like, hey, you work
Absolutely.
for a CRM company, let me sell you. And it's like, I'm just going to delete it immediately, right? What going to market with partners does, it gives you this data set, right? And again, I'll go back to my piece on technology partners. If you have a tool like Crossbeam now, and me and you partner on Crossbeam, I can now see our joint customer overlaps. I can now
Mhm.
see my prospects that are your customers, right? I can see where it's joint prospects. Well, now imagine giving that data to your SDRs and saying, like, hey, SDR team, you're trying to target this list of account. I know that that customer uses X technology. Well, now guess what? They can take that information and personalize their cold outreach to say, hey, Paul, I see that you also use Magentrix. By the way, we have this wonderful integration. It does X and Y. This is what so it actually gives you the personalization by partnering with people, right? It gives you easy personalization that you can use in your outreach and your marketing efforts just to make things that much more effective.
So, what do you think a vendor can do if, the person that they're working with, the partner, doesn't really have the resources or the expertise to kind of effectively market their product? Is there anything that you think the vendor can do to kind of help the partner out when it comes to marketing?
I think like the larger vendor programs, you have your MDF budgets, which you can give to partners, right? Which is like, I know you might not have resources, but guess what? We've got this bucket of money you can apply for to run lead generation efforts. Again, like that only happens with the large vendor programs, right? You're thinking about your Microsoft, Cisco's, etc. From like an ISV perspective, if you're going to market with an ISV, that becomes difficult, man, because I mean, candidly, if the opportunity is there and you're willing to invest some funds into that, then wonderful.
Hmm.
But if they haven't got any marketing budget, then like it can be tough to be honest, because then you have to have the conversation around how much are we willing to submit from a resource perspective, and how much is the effort worth. I'll go back to my earlier point about what is the opportunity, and then how like and how much we want to invest to reach that opportunity. And so I think again it depends on the partner program, depends how well resourced they are, but you have to make a conscious effort of if this partner isn't willing to contribute or can't contribute, do we want to make the investment from our side because the opportunity cost is so high?
For sure. So that makes me think, well, now that we have this kind of advent of ChatGPT, how does that affect partner marketing efforts? And, how do you make sure your work stands out? Because it seems like it's easier for brands just to put out more content and have ChatGPT write it.
It's a really interesting point, mate. And again, like I could talk about this all day long. It definitely helps, but I would say that it doesn't mean that like you can now run partner marketing through ChatGPT. But what it allows you to do is be far more efficient, and so you can get
Hmm.
more done with less. I would say. So going back to your earlier point, and so if we think about the joint blog post now, well, we can get ChatGPT to write a pretty good summary and then have our partner teams fill it in, right? It goes from halving the time to like a third of the time to create that. And so I think AI is going to bring some interesting pieces from like a efficiency and an automation perspective, but there's still a human element needed to really nail that joint value proposition, right? Like
Hmm.
if you put ChatGPT, we could probably do it on this call, right? We could put in, hey, write a joint value proposition for Magentrix and let's just use Crossbeam, right? For example, it's going to be super generic. And ultimately, you go back to that personalization piece. People, when you reach out to them, don't like generic. They like really targeted stuff. And so I think ChatGPT can help supplement and make things a bit more efficient. But candidly, it's never going to have that human element that is needed to really get inside your prospect's head and really get to the pain points that your products are solving.
Absolutely. Where do you stand on incentivizing partners? Getting people to providing some level of incentives to get partners to participate in marketing activities. Any effective ways, or where do you stand there?
It's a really interesting one, mate, and one that I think is often like overdone. I do like spiffs in certain occasions. And again, like we'll go back to NDFs. That is a form of incentive, right? To partner with people. I think in my experience, incentivization can get a relationship off to a good start. That's traditionally when I use it. Like if a partnership's about to kick off, it's a nice like month incentive to say, hey, leads that come in this month, we're going to pay you $200, $300, because it gets people thinking about you, gets things going.
Mhm.
But over a period of time, again, without you putting in the effort to establish relationships, to educate, to enable, spiffs are a superficial way of trying to do that, in my opinion. So I think it
For
works
sure.
well in certain gates or certain stages of a partnership. But to do it like the whole year long and just keep running spiffs, they're not actually learning about your product. They're not understanding the value proposition. They're just chucking you over leads because it's like, I'm going to get an extra $500. And so I think you can use incentives sparingly and effectively, but I'm not an advocate of doing it like throughout a partnership to incentivize sales teams.
So AI aside, where does technology play in all this? The MarTech stack has been around for the last couple of years. It's really come a long way. So how do vendors leverage technology to kind of enhance their marketing efforts with partners?
There's some interesting things happening in the partnership space. I mean, another great conversation for you to have would be with a guy called Blake Williams, who runs an agency called Amp Factor.
Hmm.
And they're starting to basically run an effort which is ABM for partnership teams. So running
Hmm.
account-based marketing through ads, through white papers, through PDFs to target specific partners. And so I think like even though the MarTech stack has been there for ages, it I don't think the best practices have seeped into partnerships yet. And I think there's a variety of reasons for that. First being budget again, right? Like partnership teams aren't given an ad budget to go out and recruit partnerships and stuff like that,
Hmm.
recruit partners. But I do think we'll see with this kind of rise in popularity of partnerships, people wanting to double down, stuff like the ABM type platforms out there, right, being used to actually target potential partners, and then as a byproduct, their partners, their customers. And so I think like that for me is going to be a subtle shift in our industry whereby I do think traditional marketing tools that have really been kept in the direct side of the business will start to seep into partner marketing and be used effectively. So I think that's kind of one comment. The other piece I would say, and it goes back to this account mapping, the rise of like all of these kind of partner specific tools that are starting to be built for our industry. The data there is going to be incredibly useful. We've never had so much
Absolutely.
data for partnership teams. And so I think as a marketer, my mind goes to with this data, like how can we retarget these customers? How can we use joint value messages to drive more leads? And so I think it's a really exciting time, and one that's really going to kind of change in the next year or so, where we're going to start to see really kind of clever marketing efforts be used for partner marketing as well.
Yeah, I think the account mapping industry, looking at, for example, PartnerTap, who I talked to a number of years ago, and have kind of maintained a open dialogue with them. The more I look at their technology and what it's capable of, it really is about uncovering opportunities hiding in plain sight. We work so hard to be able to, get through the gateway, the gatekeeper, the front door, but in all reality, there are these just great opportunities right in front of us.
Love the team at PartnerTap, and Cassandra's doing a great job and growing that team
Mhm.
every day, which is phenomenal to see. Your point is a great one in terms of like the stuff that's hiding in plain sight, because if you think about how we traditionally used to do things, like ad hoc basis, people used to reach out like, hey, we've got an opportunity, blah, blah, blah. Like there's all this stuff which exists, but nobody's got visibility of because you've got two disparate CRMs, right? Maybe you've got a
Mhm.
HubSpot and a Salesforce, so they're not talking together. On your partnership calls, maybe you've got a spreadsheet which is never updated and never shared with anybody. And
Nope.
so these tools basically take all of these manual processes and, to your point, all this hidden data and consolidates it into a view which now we can use to run a lot of go-to-market plays. So yeah, I love that point, mate. The hidden in plain sight is a great kind of analogy of what they're doing, I think, for the partnership space.
So, in your experience, what strategies have you implemented in the past to ensure the success of your marketing efforts? I mean, like 200,000 a month in MRR is fantastic. Can you give us an example of what you did to achieve that?
It's not going to be revolutionary in its nature, but again, like if you think about direct marketing, there's a lot of like nurturing sequences that you can put together to pull a prospect along a funnel, right? So like they come in at the top, you send them some content, they move to the next stage, you're sending them some additional emails or whatever. And so I would say to everybody out there, the partner marketing piece where you are sending regular updates, newsletters, drip feeding partners and their sales teams information, in my opinion, have been the biggest driver of success, not the through partner, not the webinars, not the joint case studies. For me, if you can capture a partner's attention, especially in a world where if you're partnering with somebody, they're also partnering with probably 100 other partners, right? For me, that is the critical driver of success. If you can gain mind share on a consistent basis, have sales reps thinking about you on a consistent basis, that for me is the primary tactic that I think drives the most success. Another kind of, I guess, case study in the market, Gorgeous, which is a customer support tool, a guy called Chris Lavar, who I really, really respect, and again, would be a great conversation, really kind of drove home that partner newsletter, and they saw tremendous growth in their partner program at Gorgeous. And so for me, that is the critical piece. And everybody that's listening to this that thinks, hey, we should do more webinars, we should do more joint case studies, whatever it might be, right? Like, great, that's a one-off activity, but you're not capturing the mind share of the people that matter most, that are speaking to customers on a day-to-day basis, and that is your partner sales team. And so for me, that is the piece. Think about your partner sales team as your primary customer, almost, as a partner manager and a partner marketer, and work out ways to increase top of mind kind of awareness, I would say. That would be my biggest kind of success story and thing that I've seen work the best.
So, how can a vendor actually measure success or ROI from their partner marketing efforts? Are there any specific metrics you think they should be tracking?
I think there's a couple of categories, right? Like, if you think about your world, the PRM solution, if you've gone and created all this wonderful marketing collateral, one piece that you should be really looking at is like adoption, who's been in, who's accessed. Because ultimately, like, you're creating all this stuff, Paul, right? You've got like your great battle card, you've got your PowerPoint presentation, but nobody's accessing it, then what's the point ultimately? And so I think if you are using a PRM, that would be one metric I really would look at, is like utilization of some of those marketing assets that you've got inside. And again, secondary point on that, if certain things are being used, certain things aren't, that would be an indication that maybe you need to double down on a certain type of resource or whatever it might be, right? So I think from a resourcing perspective, that's one area that I always look at, which often isn't tracked. We just keep producing more content, right? We just keep producing it and it's not used. So I'll start there. The second piece, if you think about the two partner marketing, which I keep going on about, track it the same you would like a cold email campaign, right? How many opens, how many clicks, how many people are hitting the CTAs? Again, iterative process. If nobody's clicking it, change it up, right? If people are, what are they clicking on? And so that's a really good kind of set of metrics to look at from a two partner marketing perspective. And then if we go to like the traditional, how do we do a webinar or a joint blog post? Well, then that's leads generated as a result, right? Like, if they're on a webinar, how many prospects have come into our funnel as a result of that? And then how many have converted? Traditional marketing metrics, right? But the other two are a bit more nuanced in the way that, like, I feel that's an obvious one. Like, the webinar one is tracking prospects and leads. That's an obvious one. Two partner marketing, though, as I mentioned, most important in my opinion, should track on opens, unsubscribes, similar to a cold email campaign. And then, as I mentioned, like, all of your resources should be planned accordingly, because you don't have that much resource available to you as a partner marketer. And so don't just regurgitate information. Don't just create for the sake of creating. Track what is being used, what partners are getting use out of, and then double down there as well, I would say.
So, as we start to get wrapped up, what do you think the most important bit of advice is that you can give vendors that are really trying to level up their partner marketing efforts?
I think I'll kind of separate this into two buckets. I think the first would be kind of a point you made: embrace new technology and embrace different ways of doing partner marketing. So you think about LinkedIn as a source, right? Kind of double down on maybe marketing to partners through LinkedIn. Maybe do ads, right? Maybe try that out. Try different things. Stop using the same playbook of like, this is how we partner market. We do a battle card and then we get a webinar and then that's it, right? Because candidly, you mentioned the way that marketing has changed and the different tools and the different tactics and the different strategies that are being used. We're not there from a partner marketing perspective yet. We're using the same recipe book of strategies, and that needs to change, I think, as technology is developed. The second piece would just be, again, and I'll reiterate it, like, two partner marketing is, in my opinion, the most critical part, but sometimes left out. Everybody's worried about how do we generate leads. But again, I'll go back to the point of your best generation of leads is going to happen from your sales reps at your partners. And so focusing on that group, making sure that you're marketing to them through a newsletter, making sure that your enablement and training is great as well, which sometimes filters into partner marketing, right? If you're lean, you're doing some of the enablement resources as well. That's the most important point, and one that everybody should really kind of double down on.
Perfect. Well, all right, Ben, thank you so much for being on the show today. It's been a pleasure to have you here.
Thanks so much. Thanks for having me.
All right, guys, thank you for listening to the Ultimate Channel Sales Podcast. Please don't forget to join us next time. For more information, please visit channelsalespodcast.com. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe to our podcast. And if you enjoyed this episode today, please leave us a 5-star rating. From the Apple Podcast app, just select our show, scroll down to the rating and review section, and click Write Review. And don't forget to share with your friends or professional network anyone who'd enjoy it. See you next time on the Ultimate Channel Sales Podcast.